Domestic violence is a big problem here and can affect everything from home life, work, children, family, and friends. And October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And the Violence Against Women Act was the first major law to help government agencies and victims advocates work together to fight domestic violence. And that act also protects immigrant women and spouses who need help but might be afraid to go to the authorities for fear of being deported. Immigration attorney Ocar Garcia is here to talk with us about that. And this is a bigger problem than we hear about, because people are afraid to do anything about this if they're abused.
That's correct, Randy. It really takes a lot for the victim of a domestic violence crime to come forward and seek a lot of these benefits in many of these situations. It's unfortunate, but we do see a small percentage of women and sometimes men that are victims of domestic violence come forward and take the first step, which is actually the first thing that's necessary.
You say most of them are afraid because they're worried they're going to be deported, which isn't the case, and they can actually benefit in terms of the immigration status through this process if there's a conviction.
That's correct. There's different benefits that are available to undocumented non-citizens that are here in the United States and are the victims of domestic violence, being if they're victims of domestic violence, if they're in an abusive marriage, or they're in an abusive relationship where they have been victims of domestic violence. There's different programs that the Immigration Service has put out that will allow them to ultimately be able to qualify for either work permits or lawful permanent residency, which can in fact in the future lead to naturalization or citizenship.
And you were saying this doesn't necessarily, you don't need a conviction in a case to prove it. Otherwise, people wouldn't come forward if they're not sure that they could convict this person or they think the spouse might take off.
That's correct. There's specifically a program called the Violence Against Women's Act that's got very strong confidentiality requirements where the person generally just needs to be able to prove that the violence occurred, that there were victims of domestic violence, and there were in a marriage relationship to a United States citizen and lawful permanent resident to be able to apply for this benefit.
How tough is it for a person, say they come into your office and they describe this problem? What is the process? How long does it take? And there are some immediate steps to protect them once they come to you?
Absolutely. From the get-go, we want to make sure that they are in a safe place, that they are away from the abuse, first and foremost. And then it's a matter of acquiring evidence, be able to submit the proper applications to the Immigration Service along with the evidence of the abuse. And generally, the process takes anywhere between 6 to 9 months to be able to get an answer from the Immigration Service as to whether or not they were approved.
All right. Well, there's some great information, Ocar Garcia, and on your Facebook page, which is called
the Law Offices of Garcia, Ramirez and Pia800-488-5160.
I knew that. I appreciate you coming in. Remember, domestic violence is a big problem here. If you know anything about it, report it right away.